Hello, welcome back to my channel. I'm going to talk about some of the things that happened in the last two Lolcow bus shows because I don't feel the need, basically each show is basically the same, or most of it is the same with, maybe some differences, but yeah. The things that were the same were Amber complaining about how she looked in the thumbnail, as usual. Amber, why don't you make and edit the thumbnails then? Like what? Um, she says that everybody is fat phobic while acting like a dictator bully, a bully, okay? Um, and yeah, she's just overall a cunt. Oh, I'll see you next Tuesday. Um, so yeah. First, I'm just gonna get right to the meat of the pie. Is that the saying even? That is not the saying, I don't think. Anyways, let's talk about Amber's live weigh-in, okay? Because, first of all, I don't believe it for a damn second. And now that I looked up the scale, and I'm pretty sure the scale that you see is that scale that she's using, I now really don't believe her, okay? And now here's why. The scale that it seems like Amber is using is not just an industrial scale, but is specifically a scale for pets, okay? And um, it says it has an animal weighing mode that ensures stable reading when animals move around. Under this mode, once the weighing is locked, it will automatically remain locked to wait for about 10 seconds. And so I was wondering why the weight was fluctuating so much at first, and then it just locked right on 527 or whatever it was. And that's why, right? This scale is specifically made to take a correct reading even when whatever you're taking the measurement, the weight of, is moving around, like a dog or a cat. Okay. Now I will say the weight limit is 660 or 650, I think, one of those two. So I do think that Amber's within the weight limit. She's definitely on the higher end, but I think she's within the weight limit. Essentially, what I think she did is she wasn't she didn't have both of her legs fully on the scale. Like she had one of her feet slightly off the scale, and the reason that it didn't keep fluctuating back and forth between multiple ones and it looked stable was because she's using this scale specifically. I bet if she used a different scale, that wouldn't be the case. Um, and so yeah, I don't think I really need to go over anything else. I did find it interesting though that at some point in the um at some point in the video it says negative 530, and I'm not entirely sure why. So I'm gonna take a closer look at that real quick and I'll go back to you. Okay, you guys, honestly, so what she does is she hits the on off button, and then um it then it turns off, and then she then hits it again to turn it back on. And then she um I think she's still on the scale when she hits that, or at least partially, and then she gets off. And when she gets off the scale after she had already turned the scale off is when it said negative 530. But the thing is that I don't know if she was I don't know when she stepped off this, like, I don't know when she stepped off the scale or not. She's doing a really bad job at filming things, and you never see both of her feet on the scale And well, you just never see both of her feet on the scale, period. And in either the picture or this live weigh-in. So, um, that's I mean, I'm firm. The evidence is clear that she is visibly bigger than she was when she was supposedly this weight. So, um, yeah, she also Amber just acts really mean during the whole entire live. Um, she says that she needs a bald co-host and it needs to be either Sweet Tea or Scooter. So Scooter said, "Do you think I'd look good with a bald head?" And Amber said, quote, "We need to see it first to decide." Right? So, uh, that's not what you say to somebody who you have, the best intentions for. Um, Also, at some point, Boogie comes in. Well, actually, Boogie comes in a couple times during both streams. And, um, I don't know, Boogie, we don't want, stop coming onto the Lolcow bus. I don't care about you, and you're not funny. She criticizes Boogie for not rescuing some cat that lives in the sewer or around where he lives, yet she can't even keep her own cat in her own home. So, I don't really think she has much to say about yeah, I don't think she really has much moral ground to stand on. Um, oh yeah, then Amber makes this comment about Scooter doing meth by essentially telling the audience, don't send hate donos because don't send hate donos to Scooter because it may not mix well with the meth. How rude, Amber. How, like, you clearly don't care about people who struggle with addictions, like your mother. Hmm? Hmm? You don't want to talk about that though. Sheesh. Chat, at first called her a scammer because she wouldn't, they said, the thing is that they said they were gonna do a live weigh-in, and then they come in with pictures of their weights. Like, what? And so people in the chat were spamming L's and saying, she's a scammer. Which she is. Like, that is a scam. Hello? Like, if you're gonna lie, at least do it live, you know? Um, Amber always constantly looks annoyed when a super chat starts to read. And she stays annoyed unless they're nice. And then she throws up like the heart and she goes, "Thank you. Thank you for the support." Stuff like that. Amber acts like Trump and tells Scooter he's fired. Literally, she says, "You're fired" to Scooter. Then she ranks her exes. Um, and I'm not gonna say much about the ranking, so it doesn't really matter. She talks about 16-year-old her dating a 21-year-old dude. And then she talks about how he allegedly had her send photos of a toothbrush in her you know what. And I just know she stole that story from Tana Mojo. I'm not like that's an iconic story. Girl, I know that's not true. Sorry. You're not Tana Mojo. I know she wishes she was though. And then during this, chat is continuing to spam L's and say that Amber's the toxic one, and is a scammer. Amber also says fuck you to somebody saying that their views are down. Amber then calls Beck, yeah, guys, listen to this. Amber calls Beck lazy, even though she acknowledges that Beck was there for her when Amber was recovering, and during the whole cancer arc, her whole cancer, whatever. Beck was there doing everything for them, and yet still Amber calls them lazy. I mean, I don't even need to say it because we all know, right? But it's just projection much. And then when everybody in chat is like, why did you put Beck in C? Why did you put Beck in C? She says that you can put Beck in A if you drop a $20 dono. Right? And that's always like her comeback. She's like, I'll do it for the money. And like that's not a good comeback. It's just not. Like it may be for the first time, but it only is good for so long, and then it's like, okay, like, girl, who do you think you are? You know? And then her co-hosts say she seems like a harsh critic because she only put one of her girlfriends in A tier, none of them in S tier. So clearly none of them have been even close to good enough for her. Oh yeah, and then Scooter stops mid-tier list and makes Amber get on the scale and do the live weigh-in. 87% of the chat thinks she lied about her weigh-in before she does the live weigh-in. Viewership skyrockets during the live weigh-in, and yeah, she doesn't show her feet. And was also right next to a wall and a table, and then viewership drops. Oh yeah, then Amber, of course, defends her saying she wishes cancer on Boogie by saying that, like, we don't know Boogie's lore, that he faked cancer, as if, like, first of all, Boogie isn't, like, well known. Um, and second of all, as if Boogie isn't, like, the reason why Lolcow Live is even relevant. Like, the only other thing I really know about Lolcow Live is that Boogie's on it and he faked cancer, you know? And so I thought that was a stupid response because it doesn't matter. Again, like, right, this is what Amber, people like Amber, Chantal, all the girls don't understand. It doesn't matter what they did. We're not saying what they did was okay, right? We're saying what you did was wrong. It doesn't matter, right? Stop pointing finger at the other person and point the finger at yourself, girl. Please. You're like, it's like so crazy. And then when somebody sends a super chat pushing back on this, saying essentially what I just said, if you had cancer like you said you did and were as traumatized by it as you said you were, then you wouldn't wish that upon anybody, even somebody who faked cancer, right? And then she just says she stands 10 toes down on that decision. So then so then after this weigh-in segment, Sweet Tea does her tier list for her ex-boyfriends or whatever, ex-partners. And Amberlynn, you can literally see her looking at the chat the entire time. She cannot help herself but look at the chat, even while her co-host is doing something else on the screen. She can't help herself but look at the chat so badly that she demands to be modded during this. Like in the middle of this, instead of just listening to her co-host and engaging with them. She can't help it. She can't. Um, then I don't remember how this gets brought up, but she says she'll walk for donos, but then she says she actually doesn't want to, right? And that's because she doesn't want to, right? She doesn't want to walk. So, obviously. Oh yeah, and then the fire alarm goes off. I don't know. I don't know. She could have just, like, she does this on her phone. Just put us in your pocket, girl. Put us in your pocket, take your animals outside, then once you're outside, take us out, show us around. Hello. You said people already know where you live, allegedly, so, like, what are you scared of showing? Like, I don't understand. But during this time when Amber's gone, she's gone for probably like 10 minutes, and chat suggests poems. And so Scooter asks if Amber will get pissed if they do the poems, um, because they've already pissed her off a lot today. So, just shows how great of a co-host Amber is to work with. Even if this is, a little bit played up for the cameras, I'm sure it does come from somewhere real. We all know Amber. Um, and then people send both Scooter and Sweet Tea what I assume is both her Wattpad and her, like the rest of her poems, because I'm not sure, are all of her poems posted on Wattpad? Because what it sounded like is it sounded like they possibly got sent Scotty. I don't remember why I think that. But Scooter did say something that made me think, like, oh, I feel like they must have got, or maybe it was Sweet Tea. One of them said something that made me think that they got sent Scotty or like her Wattpad, not just her poems. But I'm not honestly that familiar with the Amberlynn poem lore, so. And then Sweet Tea, during this time when Amber's still away, says a little snippet of that, like, Knives on a Platter um, poem. And then she says it sounds emo, like, no shit. Then it gets a little spicy. It gets a little spicy. Oh God. Yeah. So Roxy comes in. Roxy gets put or goes into the queue, and then th they let her on. Um, and she comes on firstly to talk to Scooter. But then it quickly obviously turns to Amber, and Roxy clocks Amber's, behind, big old behind, some may say, about the fact that she was 18 and Casey was like 15 or 16 when she moved in with Casey. And so this goes like back and forth, right? And essentially what the co-hosts come to the conclusion of is that it was okay because they originally started dating when they were minors, and so Romeo and Juliet laws apply. I don't care about laws. Like, the law doesn't doesn't mean everything. Like, I don't just because my friends are like, I don't just make friends with people who aren't criminals and that's that. Like, no. Like, it's just such a stupid argument. It's clearly very predatory at the very least, right? And also makes you wonder, right? It's just important context within this whole um this the whole story, in terms of it's just one part, right? Where Amber is 18, Casey is 16, during the incidences that supposedly happened between the two, right? Casey was in high school, Amber was in college. And so it's not, I'm not basing my whole claim on that. I am, it is just one part of many pieces that altogether make me question whether Amber is telling the truth or not. Okay? Does that make sense? I hope so. Because I do not, in any way, shape, or form, want to make it seem like I am insinuating that, like, just because Amber was older or like physically bigger means that she couldn't have experienced that. I'm not saying that that is what I'm not saying that. Okay? I'm saying that it is important to note that in context with everything else that we know about this situation, right? Um, Also, it is very clear because everybody's been using he, him pronouns for Casey because that's his preferred pronouns. But it's very clear that the co hosts did not know that Casey was a trans man and they just, assumed Casey was a cis man. And when because Roxy essentially says, listen, I understand you guys are, because they were kind of giving that argument to Roxy where they were like, what? Okay, so just because Amber was 18 and Casey was 16 means that Casey couldn't have done bad things to Amber. Um, and while, you know, first of all, we know Amber was a big girl, just in general, right? Amber was at definitely more than 300 pounds during this time. That is important to know, okay? Just because she's short doesn't mean she's petite. Doesn't mean she's a skinty legend, okay? She was definitely over 300 pounds living with Casey and during these incidences or incident, whatever. But, right, if Casey was a cis man, then it is definitely plausible. Obviously, 16-year-old boys, 16-year-old cis boys are, they're stronger than 18-year-old cis women. That's the truth, probably for a large population of 16-year-old men compared to 18-year-old women. You know what I mean? I really hope I'm making sense. Um, and so, right, that seems very plausible. But then once you learn that no, Casey is actually a trans man, and so when he was dating Amber, he was he wasn't out yet. He was um presenting as a woman, and right, it's just it paints a different picture, and you can literally see both the co-hosts, like Scooter and Sweet Tea's face is just like drop because they're like, oh wait, because they didn't know, they didn't know. And yeah, I think it just shows that they didn't do any of their due diligence. Um, and it's very frustrating to say the least. Then Roxy brings up the fact that Amber's current girlfriend, Emily, who she's dated before and they've been on and off over the past like 2 years or something, I don't know, is a confirmed feeder, and they just dismiss it essentially. They're like, why are you trying to meddle in their relationship? Um, Amber straight out denies it and says it's not true and that Emily's supportive. I mean, yeah, okay, Emily's supportive, but you said it yourself. She loves your body. And I think that's really all she loves, honestly, Amber. And that's why when she realized you were wiping your butt with towels on a sink corner, she didn't offer to help you accommodate by, like, I don't know, getting a bidet or by, I don't know, helping to wipe you like one of your past partners so lovingly and selflessly did. Hmm. No, instead of doing that, they gave you bleach and told you to clean up after yourself. You filthy. You nasty animal. Pig, probably is what she said, actually. Sorry. I'm not saying that. That's not me saying that. That's Emily saying that. She called you Pocahontas. This is not speculation. This is not speculation. I'm sorry. It's just the truth, right? And that's what Emily likes. That's what she likes. She doesn't like you, Amber. Don't you get that? She doesn't like you. That's why she. Th- why even bother? Why even bother? Honestly, I'm just saying. I know that if I learned that my partner, whose body I found so attractive and who I loved so much, was using rags on a sink corner to wipe themselves, yes, I would. I my first thing wouldn't. I definitely wouldn't just give them bleach to clean up after themselves. I would say, hey, how can I help? At the very least. Yeah, Emily, you're fucking disgusting. And yeah, Emily actually even sends a super chat during this, and says, at the end of the day, the internet doesn't know us. We know each other. We know the truth. That's enough. I love you, Amberlynn. Yeah, did you say that to your last girlfriend? The reason why people care about this is for two reasons. One, Amber said she would never date a feeder. She would never ever do that. Lies, obviously. Um, and then also because Amber's super morbidly obese, and so having somebody who is into feeding them is probably not the healthiest, in my opinion, of course. I'm not a doctor. I'm not a doctor. Um, Amber also says that Roxy just believes the wrong truth, right? She doesn't say that she doesn't say that Roxy is necessarily lying, just that she believes the wrong truth, whatever the hell that means. And then eventually, Scooter and Sweet Tea just dismiss everything by saying the past is in the past and there's nothing we can do now. What? There were no charges, no nothing, so what are we gonna do? I mean, come on, guys. Are we serious? Like, we're not asking Amber to do much. She won't even acknowledge that these things happened. Okay? Do you not understand that? If she does acknowledge it, it's in a very roundabout way. And only after you practically force it out of her and after 70 caveats to make it seem better for herself. Never ever does she just take accountability. And that's all people are asking for, and she can't even do that because she's lazy, honestly, and she just cannot stand other people taking control of the narrative. She just cannot stand it. And she also doesn't want to feel bad for her actions, even though she rightfully should. Right? And they kind of end off by saying, we're giving her a second chance. First of all, Amber has had so many chances. She's had a very lengthy YouTube career before she got demonetized. Do you think, like, why do you think she wasn't, given multiple chances during that time? Hello? Why do you think she continued to have an audience? Because people kept giving her second chances? Yeah. And in all honesty, there are some people who don't really deserve second chances, such as Amberlynn Reid, who is a fucking creep. Okay? Maybe 34-year-old Amberlynn isn't quote unquote a current day creep or whatever, but 24-year-old Amber surely was, and mm, unfortunately, Amber, that's still you, and so you don't deserve any chances. In all honesty, you're a piece of shit, and you poison everything you touch. That's why everybody who comes into contact with you eventually leaves, right? Even your own damn pets. How sad. How fucking sad, Amber. Yeah. We're talking about you, Amber. Stop trying to fucking, deflect. It's so annoying, actually. I do also want to say that I'll end off here. It was very, very funny seeing because because Amber, would respond to Sweet Tea by just lying, and Sweet Tea would, be like, "No, that's not true," while Amber's still lying, and essentially interrupting Amber. Yes, but Amber was lying, so I don't blame. Sorry, did I say Sweet Tea? I meant Roxy. I meant Roxy when Roxy was fighting with Amber. Um, so then eventually what they did is they muted Roxy after Roxy asked her question so that Amber could speak because Amber kept going, "Shut the up, bitch! Shut the fuck up, bitch!" You know, blah blah blah. She just got very, very heated when when Roxy was interrupting her and talking over her, even though that's what Amber was doing. Um, and like literally, Amber started off by interrupting Roxy on her first question. Anyways, but then so then eventually they muted Roxy while like it's I'm sorry, it's just ridiculous and I'm remembering this. I'm stunned. Um, literally Roxy is muted, okay? Roxy is muted. Nobody can hear her. Can you see her? Yes, you can see her. You cannot hear her though. So like Roxy isn't talking over Amber to uh in the sense that oh my god, you guys have been talking for way too fucking long. I need to wrap this up. Oh my god, okay. Um, so Amber so Roxy's muted, right? And Amber's talking, and then Roxy's muted. Remember this, but Roxy is obviously speaking at her phone, in retaliation to whatever Amber is saying. And Amber cannot help herself, right? She just sees that Roxy's lips are talking, and she sees that Roxy is not doing what she is saying, what she is telling Roxy to do. And it makes her so mad that even though nobody can hear Roxy and it's not interrupting Amber at all, she interrupts herself by saying, "Shut the fuck up, bitch," while Roxy's fucking muted. And then it's so embarrassing because Kim comes in and is like, "Scooter, you need to do the server mute." And Scooter goes, "I did." Amber couldn't hear her either. None of us could hear her. And then Kim goes, "Oh." And then Kim tells Roxy to behave herself or try and keep her composure. Girl, tell Amber to. Amber, just speak. Nobody can hear Roxy. But no, because Roxy isn't doing exactly what Amber's saying, it makes her so fucking mad that she cannot help herself but to spend the time on trying to make Roxy do what she wants her to do instead of proving her point. Okay. Oh my god. Thank you guys for watching. Leave a like if you liked it, or don't if you didn't. Leave a comment if you have one. Subscribe. I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.